celebration. And I begin our ceremonies this morning by calling upon a member of the graduating class, James Donnell Wilson, for the delivery of the invocation. James.
Morning. I'm here to invocate a higher authority, so if you'll bow your heads. Jesus, thank you so much for today. We as a class have had to, and the faculty and staff that are present, have had to navigate interesting times and unique challenges, from just the normal law school process to a pandemic to practice court. And Lord, we thank you for bringing us to today with all those challenges that you brought us through. And Jesus, while you were on earth, you talked about two things above all else. You said a lot of incredible things, a lot of quotable things, but the two things that you said were most important is that we would love God and that we would love others. And so as we leave here with a unique skill set and talents that have been taught to us by very competent people, that we would go out and we would figure out how to love others with the skills that we've learned here, that we would go out and we would figure out how to love our neighbor, that we would love people as well as you did, and that we would bring honor to an honorable profession. Lord, we love you so much, and we thank you for today, and this is all in your name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Class, please be seated. Once again, welcome to the summer commencement ceremonies of Baylor University School of Law. We know that many of you have come from a long ways off to celebrate with your graduate today, and we thank you, first of all, for being here. James, thank you for the invocation. I have to note, however, that's the first time in all my years that I have heard practice court likened unto a pandemic. Well done, James. James is a minister, and he knows how to put it before God the Father, the way it is. This is indeed a day of celebration, and I want to open up our ceremonies this morning by congratulating the class. You've come a long way, and this is an achievement that is singular. However, I also will begin by reminding you that you did not get here by yourself. You have been supported by so many, in so many ways throughout your entire life. Foremost among those who have supported you, nurtured you, cared for you, loved you, listened when you were down, dabbed away the tears and gave the hugs when things weren't going right, are your family and friends and loved ones. And I speak, of course, here of parents. I speak of spouses, of partners. I speak of children, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and great-grandparents, aunts, all the cloud that surrounds you in support of your endeavors. So let's begin this day by acknowledging that they have brought you here since you were a baby and took your first breath. Turn around and let's celebrate your family, your friends, and your loved ones who brought you here. As James has already noted about the pandemic, we are still amid COVID. And COVID, I don't think any more words can be said about it. Trillions of words have been said. I note it here, though, with this class, because this class spent a good part of their time at Baylor Law in the midst of COVID with COVID protocols. It's not the way that we like to do it at all, but it was necessary. And when you are dealt misfortune, you play the hand that you are dealt. And I do believe that Baylor Law has played its hand superbly. But still, I want to acknowledge that this class has shown remarkable understanding, patience, and resilience. And of course, at the law school, we especially teach that concept of excellence and resilience, because life has its ups and downs, and you deal with what comes your way using every gift that God has given to you. And class, this is my COVID thanks for what you have done these past many, many months as you have passed through a program that is known so much for its rigor in legal education. And you did it under extraordinary circumstances, and that's something to be proud of. Baylor Law School, typically because of a t-shirt that appeared many, many years ago, is known as the place where fun goes to die. And indeed, that well expresses what attaches to the experience that the students have in the program in normal times. But class, you rock. You have come through the Baylor Law COVID experience, and you are going to be Baylor lawyers. And as the class is very accustomed to hear me saying, when we type or print Baylor lawyer, what do? We give it a capital B, obviously, it's Baylor, but we also give it a capital L because it's not just a descriptor, it's a brand. It's a brand. The law school is known for its service mission. I speak to the students at orientation when they're beginning their Baylor Law journey, and I, among other points, remind them that the legal profession is a serving profession. When you boil it down, that's what lawyers do. They help people solve the problems of being human in all manner of context. We have a strong messaging that goes out to all of our students about your being given when you raise your hand after passing the bar exam, which of course you all will. When you raise your hand and become a Baylor lawyer, capital B, capital L, you're given a privilege by the state. To be sure, it's a privilege that has been hard earned, but is a privilege that gives you also, compels of you also, an obligation to reach out and to serve others. At the law school, we have several clinics, and I'm proud to say this gives, and the clinics program gives to our students the opportunity to experience what it feels like to use their skills during law school to help others who otherwise can't get to where they need to be and where they want to be. Our program in the clinical area has won about 13 or 14 awards over the past 13 or 14 years, from the ABA, from the State Bar of Texas, and from the Texas Access to Justice Commission. And in October, Josh Borderud, Professor Borderud, is going to be at the United States Supreme Court to receive the Sandra Day O'Connor Award in service for his work as the director of our Veterans Clinic. And that leads me to a point about veterans and those who serve in the military. I enjoy making it at every commencement and whenever I get the opportunity, because at Baylor Law we respect the military. There is a symbiotic relationship that is seldom noticed between the legal profession and our armed forces. We as lawyers have the obligation to be stewards of our rule of law, to be stewards of the system of justice. We could not practice our craft and our calling were it not for the blanket of security that is provided by our armed forces, not just across this nation, but across the entire globe. But for those who serve in the armed forces, we would not be able to do with protection and security what we are called to do in service. And so with that, I want every active, retired, and reserve officer, enlisted, if you've been in the armed services, please rise up now to receive our appreciation. In a day and time in which we have a lot of false heroes in our culture, lots of false heroes, let's take time every day to literally thank God for the real heroes, including, of course, the first responders, and so importantly, as we have moved through COVID, our frontline healthcare workers. Those are the real heroes of our culture. Those of you who have served in the armed forces, you rock, you rock. I today am on the stage with my colleagues, many of my colleagues. I first of all want to call to your attention, we have detailed biographies taken from our website in your program, so I'm not going to deal in a lot of dot and tittle, as impressive as it may be for each of my colleagues, but I do want to point out some intangibles about each. First of all, Dr. Nancy Brickhouse. Dr. Brickhouse, please stand. Dr. Brickhouse is the provost of the university. She is the leader of all 12 colleges and schools of Baylor University. She oversees the entire academic program. She is an ardent cheerleader and supporter of Baylor law. And I so appreciate the fact that Dr. Brickhouse takes time when she can possibly do it to be with us at our graduation ceremonies, because we have 4 per year. It is a real sign of fealty to what we are about, and it's a sign of celebration and appreciation for you graduates as you go out into the profession. Dr. Brickhouse also is my boss, and I couldn't have a better boss, and that comes from my heart. It comes from my heart. Thank you, Dr. Brickhouse. Today, you will be addressed by my friend, my colleague, Professor Jerry Powell, and I'm going to get to Professor Powell in just a bit. But first of all, my other colleagues on the stage. And I will start over here. Professor Wren, raise your hand, Professor Wren. Professor Jim Wren is the new director, has been for a period of time now, succeeding Professor Powell as the director of that pandemic program practice court. Professor Wren, along with Professor Powell, Professor Consular, and Professor Fraley, form our 4-person practice court team. And needless to say, I'm not going to dwell upon it. You're all very familiar with practice court, family and friends. I'm sure you've gotten calls, emails, and text about the unreasonable aspects of the program and what are these people about? Are they crazy or nuts? What do they think we're doing here? Are we automatons? Well, I'll simply stop to say that when 2 Baylor lawyers who don't know each other meet, it doesn't take 5 minutes for them to ask each other the question, who was your practice court director? That is how prominent the program is in our orbit at Baylor Law. Professor Wren, he's a trial lawyer. Professor Wren has been named as a super lawyer year after year after year. He is exceptionally active in the trial bar activities, not just statewide, but across the nation. He is a prolific author. He has been an outstanding faculty member of Baylor University. He just really does it all. And also, all my colleagues would agree, somehow Professor Wren manages to squeeze out about 27 hours out of every 24-hour day. He just has that type of work ethic as a model for our students. And then, Professor Jeremy Consular. Professor Consular, raise your hand so they know who you are. Professor Consular. The students encounter him. Every one of our students encounter Professor Consular in their very first day of law school, their first quarter in civil procedure. Like Professor Wren, he has been around the track. He takes the students through their paces in that first quarter. He lets them know what the succeeding 8 or 9 quarters are going to be all about, and what the expectations are going to be. Professor Consular has that wonderful combination in the classroom of creating an atmosphere in which the students know what is expected of them. They also do not want to disappoint Professor Consular, and somehow he weaves all that together with a really fine dose of humor that can relieve those tense moments. Professor Consular, thank you for being with us today, along with Professor Wren, to help hood our graduates. And then, turning over to my left, your right, Dean Teague, come forward. Come forward. As I've said for 30 years now, just shy of about 2 months, we have worked together in the Dean's Suite for 30 years. About a month or so ago, Dean Teague came to me, and at the end of a normal conversation, she says, I have something else I want to share with you. I feel as though at this point I want to serve Baylor Law School in a faculty capacity, and I want to step aside from the Associate Dean's duties. Associate Deans at law schools generally serve 4, 5, or 6 years, and no longer. 30 years. Leah has done an absolutely superb job, and I cannot express my deep, profound, and lasting appreciation for what she has done for Baylor Law School, and now literally thousands of Baylor Law students who have passed on through the law school to become Baylor lawyers. Leah, you rock, and as my colleagues know, as I have said for 30 years, I love you like a sister, and it is a sadness to me to see you stepping away, but I fully understand. Dean Teague is going to focus upon our terrific transactional curriculum in the business area and other related transactional areas. She is known for her leadership, scholarship, and leadership in the profession in integrating leadership education into not only Baylor Law School, but through an association called the Association of American Law Schools. She chairs the leadership section, and that is the juggernaut in terms of a move to make sure that lawyers recognize that they have highly distinctive, if not unique, skills as leaders. Leah, I'm sorry to see you go to the 3rd floor, but...
God's not done with me yet, so we are
right.
still a team, just in a different capacity.
That's right.
Thank
I love
you.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, students are wondering, I've told them already, who is going to succeed Dean Teague. Professor Pat Wilson. Professor, stand up. Professor Pat Wilson, as of tomorrow, will be our new Associate Dean. I'm looking so forward to working with you, Pat. Professor Wilson is a senior faculty member. She is just an all-around can-do person. And it's a tough act to follow, but Pat, you're going to do it. And then also, I want to call attention to Assistant Dean Angela Cruz-Turner. Stand up. Dean Cruz-Turner has been involved in our highly successful career development office. She also, over the past few years, has taken on a number of other administrative duties. She is our Senior Assistant Dean, and as I want to note again, Dean Teague, as I did to the class before we came in, Dean Teague has done the work of 2 people, and I have decided, with the blessing of Dr. Brickhouse, to divide the obligations and the responsibilities that rest upon that position. And so, Dean Cruz-Turner, Dean Wilson, you have to put up with me now, and I think we're going to do fine. I do. Baylor Law School has a remarkably stable faculty and staff. My faculty and staff colleagues, they come and they stay because they invest in the institution, they invest in our mission They invest in our students, and they have a very felt equity interest in what Baylor Law is all about. The faculty, back in the 80s and the early 90s, went through a generational change. We had a faculty that came on largely in the post-World War II period, the 50s and early 60s, and when we came up to the 80s and 90s, we had a number of retirements. We had 2 faculty members who went to other schools to become deans. We had some who passed away during that period, and we kind of re-energized the faculty with a lot of youngsters, but now add 30 or 35 plus years to that, and we are undergoing another generational change. Just last summer, as I was standing here, I noted that David Gwynn, King David, was retiring after 54 years on the Baylor Law faculty. Today, Professor Powell is retiring. I'm going to get to you yet, Jerry. Not yet. He is retiring after 35 years of just superb service on the faculty, and they are not, to my knowledge, with us in this ceremony. It's a bittersweet day, but Professor Mike Morrison ends his 44-year tenure at Baylor Law today. Professor Ron Beal ends his 38-year tenure, and Professor Mike Rogers ends his 37-year tenure. So 35, 44, 38, 37, you do the math, and you can see that this is a day of remarkable transition. But as we have done in the past, we are reloading, and Baylor Law School goes forward, and we will indeed be all the better as we encounter and meet the challenges of a changing profession. Now, I would like to call upon Matthew James McKinnon. Matthew? Matthew is the highest ranking student in the class, and he will deliver remarks on behalf of the class. Matthew.
I cannot believe we're all sitting here today. It was just 6 months ago that we had all started the infamous Baylor Law practice court journey. And unlike any other quarter in law school, that spring quarter pushed us to our limits. For 9 weeks, 5 days a week, we sat in church pews every day, just like this church, and we suffered through practice court, which is known, among other things, for making its law students absolutely miserable. Throughout this whole process, there was one thing I looked forward to every day. It was the time we had in between classes in that church, when we got to talk to each other. So we had class for 2 hours in the morning, starting at 7:45, and then our second class started at about 10, and every now and then Professor Wren would finish early, and we were all spaced out in different pews throughout the church, and as soon as class would end, all of us would just rush together and start talking about how we survived another practice court class. This was the first quarter since the start of the pandemic that we were all finally allowed in the same class together. For the first time in almost a year, we were back in an environment where we were surrounded by all our friends. We needed each other to get through these last 6 months of law school. No matter how stressful things got, we were all here and we were all going through the same process together. We were all suffering through the grueling experience together. And this pretty much sums up my entire law school experience. The relationships and the connections with people I've made throughout my time here is what got me through these 2.5 years. And those friendships and memories is something I'll always treasure. As I began to prepare for law school in early 2019, I remember trying to figure out what the deal was with law school. I hadn't really heard much beforehand, so I got on some message boards and some online sites, and I was reading about the law school experience. And that's when I found out about how the law school classes are graded. See, whenever you're in middle school, high school, even in undergrad, if you do well, you get an A. and that's all you have to be worried about is yourself and your own performance. But law school is different. Law school is graded on a bell curve. And what that means is that pretty much a majority of the class, they're going to get Bs. You might have 1A, you might have a couple A minuses, but the vast majority of people are getting Bs. And this creates a very odd competitive environment where the people that you're in the classroom with every day, who you're supposed to be best friends with, are actually the same people that you're going after and trying to beat. And so this weird dynamic kind of creates some tension when you first start law school. And then we started our first day back in 2019. After sitting through orientation for 3 days, it was time to see what this whole law school thing was about. I remember we had 2 cases to read for the first day, which is incredible looking back on it now that we only had to read 2 cases. The torts case seemed easy enough with Professor Meyer. My good friend, Nico Stevens, somewhere over here. He was the lucky person that got called on that first day. I remember Professor Meyer calling him, stood up, and he quizzed him over the case. Nico, he's usually pretty sharp on his feet, and he handled the case pretty well. I was sitting in the back of the classroom, on the other hand, in an absolute panic. I felt like I didn't know a single answer to any of these questions, and I was already lost. Thank God I didn't get called on, because I would have been embarrassed, and I would have embarrassed myself in front of these 40 new people that I had just met. The next class, contracts with Professor Bates. I dodged getting called on again for the second time that day. But the person who did get called on, they weren't so lucky. That day, at about 3 p.m., we sat there and we watched Jessica Francis pour out in tears for about 70 minutes as Professor Bates drilled her with questions that none of us knew the answers to. All it took was 1 day of law school and sitting through these law school classes when I finally realized that we were all in this together. Yes, this was a competitive environment. We were competing for grades, we were competing for jobs, but above anything else at that point, we just wanted to survive, and we couldn't do it alone. One of my favorite memories from our first year in law school, it came at the end of our 3rd quarter. It was the day of our tax final. I was sitting in the classroom, and in walks David Sutner. Where's David? I don't see you, David. Great guy, David Sutner. And so he walks into the class, and he's usually got, pretty long hair. He doesn't right now, but usually does. And he walks in, and his head is completely shaved. And we all just kind of jump back like, David, what happened? And then Professor Robinson walks in, and she walks by each student and hands them the test, looks them in the eye, and then she gets to David. She sits there and she stares at him for a second, just trying to figure out, who is this kid? You could tell she couldn't recognize him, and then when she finally realized it, she asked, David, why'd you shave your head? His response, stress. Dealing with stress is such a big part of law school. In our class, unlike any other class at Baylor, we love taking out our stress at the ping pong table. If you were ever in the school before the pandemic hit and you heard someone playing ping pong, you knew it was someone from our class. No one else in the law school played ping pong except for us. And it's funny because the ping pong table's in the student lounge, and people go there and they eat their lunch, and they're usually trying to cram in a case or 2 in between classes, and so they're probably expecting a quiet and a peaceful environment. And then all of a sudden, one of our classes would get out, and we rush to the student lounge, and we're immediately loud and yelling, and we're playing ping pong around the table because we didn't care. That was our time to bond and get our minds off of school and just relax. And then in March of 2020, we were sent online and quarantined to our apartments, and our time at the ping pong table was taken from us. Instead, we had to bond over phone calls and Zoom calls We had to talk about the stress of the pandemic and the unexpected struggles, whether or not we were going to be able to keep our job for the summer and be able to meet our bills for the upcoming year. I remember my practice court partner over here, James Wilson, who you heard from earlier today. That was a tough summer for him, and I remember him calling me constantly. He had two jobs lined up that summer, and he was pretty excited because he'd be making some good money and be able to support his newborn child. And unlucky for him, he had both of his summer programs canceled, and it was just a gut punch. And I remember we would talk on the phone constantly, just trying to get him through that whole process. And as I was thinking about the pandemic and the struggles, I just remember how it was us being there for each other. And without that, we would not have been able to get through that time when we were stuck alone in our apartments, hadn't seen our friends in months. And as we enter this next chapter of our lives, we will no doubt be dealing with difficult times and an even higher level of stress than we ever experienced here at Baylor. So never forget how we got through these last 2.5 years together. Never forget how we relied on the phone calls to our friends whenever we were feeling overwhelmed or we needed someone to talk us through it. Never forget those days where we were in our worst moments in practice court, but we could still come together at the end of class and bond over the miserable experience together. Congrats to everyone for making it here today. We did it.
Matthew, you're going to be a mighty fine lawyer. You have just beautifully created the story, the images of what it's like to pass through Baylor Law School. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. That environment that Matthew has spoken of is brought to you, class, each day, as you well know, by my faculty and staff colleagues. I have introduced some, I have spoken of them. They create the high expectations, they create the rigor, they create the orientation to serve as our students pass through Baylor Law. They are a remarkable, remarkable assembly of people and lawyers. And at this point, I would like not only those whom I have introduced as part of our stage party, but I want all of my faculty and staff colleagues over here back to please stand and receive our recognition and appreciation. Professor Jerry Powell. For 35 years, the last name, simply Powell, has resonated among our students as they pass through the pandemic practice court program. Professor Jerry Powell is the Abner V. McCall Professor of Evidence. He's hard to characterize. He has, of course, been the longtime director prior to Professor Wren of the practice court program. His achievements began way, way back, as you would expect. He was a national debater at Baylor in his undergraduate days. He came to the law school. He absolutely burned up the track academically and in advocacy in mock trial competitions. He was the first in the class. We were classmates. He reminds me of that from time to time. He, many, many years ago, received from the university, and this is an honor that is given only to a few. I think maybe there's been 25 over the period of about 30 years in a faculty that numbers close on to 2,000. He was given the moniker Master Teacher. And as our students today who are graduating can attest, in the classroom and in the courtroom, he is just that. He is a master. He holds his class at rapt attention. He is one who they do not want to disappoint. They will not disappoint. He does not in any way stand by mediocrity. He will not put up with it. He demands excellence. He is someone whom the students do not want to disappoint, and when they do disappoint, it brings tears. He is the quintessential Baylor lawyer. He's also a master storyteller. He is an accomplished academic author in the areas of evidence and procedure. He is a master storyteller. And before I go on any further with his academic qualifications and achievements, I want to note that earlier this year he published his first novel, The Sporting House Killings, a Gilded Age thriller. G. Redding Powell begins his series of novels. Get your copy from Amazon today. Professor Powell has not only made his mark at Baylor Law School, he makes his mark in the community. If you're visiting Waco as you are, and if you have time, despite, of course, the family celebrations today, just across the river, you can visit the Doris Miller Memorial, a memorial to the hero of Pearl Harbor, Doris Miller. That memorial and statue stands because of the efforts largely of Jerry Powell. The Texas Ranger Hall of Fame, he has served on the board. I remember some years ago there was a remarkable trial of a Texas Ranger, a simulated trial of a Texas Ranger, played out by Baylor lawyers and faculty to a standing room only crowd as a benefit to the Hall of Fame. All that was brought to you by Jerry Powell. Our students try, among many, many other trials, a simulated trial regarding the responsibility of parties for the sinking of the Titanic. That comes to you from Jerry Powell's imagination. A couple years ago, he was named the Outstanding Mentor by the Waco McLennan County Young Lawyers. That was local. This year, he was named the Outstanding Mentor statewide by the Texas Young Lawyers Association. Jerry Powell is someone that trial lawyers want to emulate. He is someone that makes an impression upon his students, not only at the moment, but a lasting impression, one that they carry with them literally now through the decades. And today is indeed a bittersweet day because Professor Powell is retiring along with my other three long-tenured faculty colleagues. Baylor Law will be lesser for the loss of Jerry Powell. I've told him, though, that he will be summoned to the courtroom on regular basis to work with our students. You can go, but you can't go too far, Jerry. What Jerry has accomplished over these decades in the profession and all the faculty, he's not done by himself. And I do not know where Barbara, his teammate, Barbara, his wife, is seated. But Barbara, if you could stand. Where are you, Barbara? Over here, a bit in the darkness. When someone succeeds in life and in career, they never do it by themselves, of course. They do it so importantly with the aid, the nurturing, the help, the support of their spouse or partner. And Barbara, you have rocked all these years. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. And thank you to Colin and Callie each of their children. Colin is a Baylor lawyer. Jerry, we're losing you as a faculty colleague. We're not going to lose you as a friend, though, and you are, in fact, my dear friend. I give you Jerry Powell.
Dr. Brickhouse, Dean Tobin, faculty, colleagues, friends, most importantly, graduates, I sincerely thank you for the honor of being selected to speak to you today. It means a lot to me. It's truly in the nick of time. Tomorrow, I'll be a pensioner. This, in fact, is my last day as an employee of Baylor University. This is my last official act. This is the last thing that anybody's paying me to do. So, gosh, you know, and I started thinking about that. I get to make a speech on my last day of a job. I expect I could say just about anything about whatever I want to, right? And don't have to worry that somebody's going to be mad at me and fire me. So, you know, think I will. Think I will. So tomorrow I'm going to be out in the pasture. I'll just say this, that the grass is pretty green there, and the old bull is my buddy. We're going to enjoy snorting at the world and stomping around that pasture together, but that's tomorrow. Got to do this today, don't we? Got to do this today. And I started thinking about what I would say to this fine group of young men and women, and you know, what can I say that I haven't already said? I thought, okay, I thought on the last day of the spring quarter I was giving you my final words. Did you get that feeling? And so I suppose today are my final words. So what I'm going to do is focus on something that's happened since then, and that's today. I'm going to talk about your today and not my tomorrow. Today is graduation day. I, over the decades, have gained some perspectives on Baylor Law graduation that I think I can honestly say very few people in this room share. Only two others that I know of for sure. I've looked at graduation from every point of view possible. As a faculty member, as a parent, as a student. I guess I'll have to qualify that. I have not ever been asked to play the cello, okay? But other than that, I've seen it from every angle, and I want to share with you my perspectives from each of those points of view. First, the faculty. For over 35 years, I've attended these graduation services as a faculty member. I want you, class, to look at my colleagues on the faculty and up here on the stage. You know, I know them very well, and they're a magnificent group of folks, some of the smartest people on the planet, and very, very talented lawyers and teachers. Do you wonder what they're thinking today? Do you wonder what's in their heads today when you're graduating? I think I know. I think that, for example, Jim Wren wants you to know he'll be in touch. I think Jeremy Counselor wants to give you a nod. You know what I'm talking about, right? Oh, come on. Okay. It's a good thing the newer model of practice court teacher comes with hair. Not for long, he says. Brian Sayer couldn't be with us today, but I know what Brian is thinking. He just needs 2 more class hours with you. Just 2 more, and he'll buy the pizza, okay? And Liz Fraley, I think I know what she's thinking. She's thinking, I hope you remember what I taught you about cross-examination. I hope you remember what I taught you about how to excise a witness's heart with surgical precision without getting blood on your dress, right? And you know the answer to that, don't you? You know the answer. You wear red, right? And you smile when you cut. Liz Fraley, she's here for you, for sure. All of the faculty, all of my colleagues on the faculty, think of you as their creation. Each of them has had a part in molding the lawyer that you are today and you will be tomorrow. And I can tell you, because I've talked to them, they're very, very proud of you. They're proud of their work, but they're proud of you. We've each tried in our own ways to help you succeed in law school. I know you may not have realized that at the time. In fact, you may have thought we were doing just the opposite. But you know what? Some of us were there to give you a shoulder to cry on, and some of us just made you cry, okay? Second, I've had the perspective of being a parent too. I want to talk to you about what they're thinking. I know you looked back at them a moment ago. This room is packed with, as Brad said, parents and grandparents and great-grandparents and partners and spouses and kiddos and, you know, just friends, people who have come here because they care about you. And they want to say how much, by their presence, that you mean to them. I know what it's like to be a parent watching your kid graduate from Baylor Law School. I know exactly. In part, it's a huge relief. It's a huge relief. It's like when your child finally stops having the colic, okay? But not just that. It's also like watching your child score the winning goal in some athletic contest, you know, and you want that moment to last forever, right? That's a moment that you share together. That's what a parent feels like. One of the moms of somebody in this group posted this on Facebook. I don't know how I found my way to Facebook, but I happened to read it, and I sort of liked it because it's true. She wrote, "Seeing your children truly flourish in the pursuit of their dreams and calling is such an incredible feeling." I think that's true. I know that's true. They've been your steady support system, haven't they? I don't know. Maybe your mom is like that parent who watched you in the marching band at high school homecoming and turned to your dad and whispered, "Why are all those other kids so out of step?" Well, we all need somebody like that, don't we? Somebody who will cheer us on no matter what stupid things we do in school or in life or whatever. God bless them for that, if they've been there for you. Some of the folks in this room are spouses or spouses-to-be of graduates. What's law school like been for them? I see some of them looking back. Well, I think that God has a special place in heaven for spouses of Baylor law students. I really do. You know, you have to go through it all, endure it all, even practice court you have to go through. And at the end, you don't even get a diploma, right? And maybe the worst thing is that your law student spouse gets professional training in the art of cross-examination. Spouses, have they ever turned that on you? Forgive me if they did. Have they ever turned that on you? You know, you can just hear it. Sweetheart, you know I needed to study for finals, didn't you? You understood that the future of our family depended on me getting good grades, right? You knew that our kiddos wouldn't go to college unless I had peace and quiet in the apartment. But you had to practice your tuba anyway, didn't you? My wife can tell you, sometimes what we learn as lawyers is employed in places that it shouldn't be. And that's just one of those things that spouses endure and have to live with and get over. But you know what, spouses? Pretty soon you can just say, leave it at the office, dear, and then order Outback steaks for home delivery and everything will be fine. Graduates, I think if I had a spouse or a soon-to-be spouse that had been through law school with me, I might say something like this to that person. I know I may have seemed needy in the last 3 years, but now it's your turn. I hope I haven't seemed self-centered. I'm not really, I'm not. I'm just learning how to cope with stress and new things and married life too. And I think I will be a better partner when life's next challenges come toward us. Third and finally, consider for a moment the perspective of these young people sitting in the black robes, the graduates. I sat there too. I know what that's like too. As he said, Dean Tobin and I were there back in 1977. We were few in number and we endured it together, just like Matt said. Where are you, Matt? Just like he said. He and I did that just like he said, along with all of our other classmates. You know, when I think back on my law school, I remember the first day studying for classes. Do y'all remember that? I remember sitting in my apartment in my lawyer chair, and I had my case book in this hand, and I had Black's Law Dictionary in this hand, right? And I'd read here, and I'd look over there, and I'd go back there and back and forth. I thought I was supposed to be studying law, and I discovered it was actually a class in the Greek language. But you know what? I was wrong about that too. It turned out to be Latin, didn't it? I'm so glad that Matt talked about the relationship with the rest of you and with his classmates. Everything he said is just so true. Here's something that he didn't say. I don't know if this is true or not. Let me try it on you. Do you remember back in the first quarter, maybe the early quarters of law school, there was that person who every time a prof asked a question, that hand went up. You remember that? Was there a person like that? In my day, we called them gunners, you know, and I mean, honestly, nobody really liked them. They just didn't understand the law school code, the law student protocol that Matt was talking about. You know, you keep your head down, you keep your mouth shut, you just survive, and they didn't get that. Was there somebody like that in your class? So they didn't make it to graduation, huh? Oh, there was. Who was that? Who is that? Sutner, is that why you shaved your hair? He wanted them to think he was somebody else, right? But there are others in your class too. Maybe your study group, certainly your practice court partner, the ones you hung out with and sat next to. As Matt said, the ones that you could count on. Quarter by quarter speeds by, and you know who they are. They're the people that are just always there for you. Be sure, and I know you will, but before you get away and go wherever the practice of law takes you, do it today if you think of it. Exchange contact information with people. Keep those friendships close. I promise you they will be lifelong friendships, and they will mean more to you than absolutely anything. So, friends, family, y'all know what they've just been through? I mean, you've seen a little glimpse of it. And Matt has sort of echoed, I think, universal feelings that they've all had, and that I had, and that Tobin had, and Counselor had, and Wren had. I mean, we all felt the same way. I mean, you think you're the Lone Ranger and this is something new. Well, no, this is the way law students in Baylor Law have always felt. And so they have probably complained to you about law school. They have probably bemoaned, certainly practice court if nothing else, but probably everything, and talked about how impossible it was and how unreasonable those professors were. And I know that you did your best to tell them it's okay and that they'll make it through it and everything's right with the world, don't worry about it, it'll get better. But honestly, parents and friends and family members, you had no idea. You just had no way of knowing because you hadn't sat in those seats yourselves. And that's the only way you would know. Look, it might be if somebody said something like this to you. If somebody said, okay, here's a stack of books on quantum physics. You need to read 200 pages for this class by tomorrow. And by the way, that other class you're taking, they'll have a similar requirement there. And the instructor might say to you, you know, be prepared to discuss this in class intelligently with a quantum physicist who wrote the book. And she'll require you to stand up to answer questions in front of a group of 60 or 70 people and ask you questions that have been carefully devised to be unanswerable, right? And if you don't get the right answer, everybody will laugh. And if you just freeze up and your mind shuts down, and it will, then you'll be booted out of class. You'll have to march out in front of all your peers as they watch in awkward silence, but only after you've been given another 100 pages to read and to write a professional memorandum about. And by the way, it needs to be substantively perfect and no typos. Otherwise, you'll get another memo for the next day. And then the next day will come. And that's what law school is sort of like when you're there. So this is mostly about today. Just a few words about tomorrow, okay? We're all going out together, so to speak. Whatever mark we were going to make at Baylor, we made it. Time to go mark up something else, isn't it? Graduates, let's go make the world a better place. I want you to go out there and solve people's problems, make your communities safer, better, stronger. I want you to do everything you can to preserve and protect the rule of law. It's never been so at peril as it is today. We need you to go out there and do that. I know you can do that, and I'm counting on you too. That's what I want you to do tomorrow. Me? I promise to make the world better too. Maybe I'll start by just leaving people alone for a while and not creating angst. I've worked for 3 decades at the place responsible for killing fun. Powell the Fun Slayer. I don't have to do that anymore. Frankly, I don't think fun is such a bad thing after all. Heck, maybe we need more rather than less fun in the world. I think I'll just go out there tomorrow and try to stir up a little fun. Provost Brickhouse, Dean Tobin, I commend to you this graduating class, these amazing and talented young lawyers. I recommend them for conferral of the degree of Juris Doctor. Baylor lawyers all. God bless them. Thank you.
A grand slam, yet again, from the master storyteller, the brilliant teacher, and the quintessential Baylor lawyer. Thank you, Professor Powell. And now I call upon Dean Teague for comments upon the regalia and the symbolism of academic regalia. Dean Teague.
Thank you, Professor Powell. This begins the formal part of our program today. And so I want to begin with helping all of you understand the significance of the regalia that your graduates are wearing today. Every aspect of today is special, including the outer garments that you are wearing. Each component has significant meaning, and I want to share that with you. And this goes back to the very beginning of universities in the 12th and 13th centuries in Europe, where all of these traditions began. Each color was assigned with significant meaning. In the 1930s, there was the adoption of a code that relates back to a gathering in 1895 of a group of academics gathered at Columbia to formalize these ceremonies. So this code, adopted in 1932 by the American Council on Education, sets the standards that we continue to use today. So the color, the cut, the style, the material of the robe and the hood that your graduates will be donning, those all tell the story. And the regalia that you have today, the robe that you have, plus the hood that you will receive, they tell the world that you have earned a degree of Juris Doctor from Baylor University. The velvet trim down the front and the bars on the sides of our sleeves, they are reserved for those who have earned a doctorate degree. The hoods that you will be presented with, they drape down your back and they hang longer than those who receive a master's. Your hoods will be aligned with the official colors of the university. Today, you will proudly wear the Baylor green and gold. The satin edge on the hood, it's 5 inches wide, and yes, that is wider than the hood for a master's degree. The velvet trim on the robe, the satin edge, they are colored for your degree. Purple is the color that you will wear today. Purple is the color of law, and that's very fitting. It's the most fitting color to represent our proud profession. Historically, purple was very rare in nature and therefore expensive to produce, and therefore that meant that only those who were nobles were allowed to wear purple. It was the privilege that came with the power to impact others. This is why Alexis de Tocqueville, when he came to America and observed American lawyers in the 1830s, when he came to study our democracy, he gave us the brand as lawyers as the American aristocracy. Now, I'll admit, when I first heard that, I didn't like that. But what did he mean? To understand what he meant, I have to understand his reference, his point of view from his life. He came from Europe, and historically, the nobles were charged with the very care and well-being of all of those that lived on their lands. So he saw American lawyers serving as guardians of our democracy. The role of lawyers in America, it's still to serve in that role of protecting the rights, the liberties of ordinary citizens in the very same way that European nobles were expected to take care of the people who lived on their land. This is why Baylor law is so tough. We understand the responsibility that you will assume when you join this profession and when you wear that brand as a Baylor lawyer. Today, you join a very small band of dedicated professionals who have earned the privilege that comes with a law degree and a license to practice. Now, I know many of you have no way of knowing this, but lawyers in America represent less than 0.5% of the population. Let me say that again, 0.5% of the population. That is the group, the honorable group that you now join as you cross the stage today. And at Baylor Law, we are by design, by intention, one of the smallest law schools in the nation. So again, I understand most of you are not math. That's why some of you came to law school, right? But let's sort of think about that. What that means is that puts you in a very tight group. You're among the best of the best when you entered law school. We know that based upon your accomplishments and your credentials. And oh my goodness, did you work hard. You've heard stories shared of the stress and the struggles, the trials and the tribulations. But as has been said over and over again, you've done it together. And that's what we expect of you. That's what we lawyers need to do as we go forward. As you accept that responsibility that comes with this privilege of being part of this great profession. We are so proud of who you are. We are so proud of the lawyers that you will be. And so, yes, purple is a fitting color, not only for our robes, but even our flowers today. There's another reason that purple is an appropriate color. If you think about a rainbow, the band of purple in the rainbow has the most powerful wavelength, they tell us. You will be a powerful member of society. You are charged with using your skills and abilities for good. We know you came to law school to do just that, to help others, to right the wrongs. We know you understand that you have an obligation to zealously represent your clients. But as members of this honorable profession, we owe a higher duty to serve society with honor and integrity. As you've heard, lawyers, we're not just zealous trial lawyers. We are problem solvers. You will be leaders in society. You will take an oath to support the Constitution. And in that preamble, let me remind you, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Yes, you are the guardians of our democracy. You have a special place in society and a special duty to serve, protect, and to be positive influencers. And you have heard those messages from the very first day of orientation. We know you're ready. You will have many opportunities to serve, to make a difference in the lives of your family, your clients, your peers, and your communities. Your influence and your impact will have ripple effects far, far beyond your individual person. So I leave you with one of my favorite quotes from dear Professor Powell. Can y'all say that yet? Dear Professor Powell? Hopefully today's message will help you make that transition. Here's one of my favorite quotes. May your footprint be bigger than your foot. Think about that. We know that your footprint will. You are Baylor lawyers, you will be leaders, and we are so proud of you. So thank you to each and every one of you who played the role in bringing your graduate to this day and the continued support that you will provide for them. We hope today is helping you understand just how important their role in society will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Teague. I now call upon Provost Brickhouse for remarks prior to the certification of the class. Dr. Brickhouse.
It is truly an honor to be with you today. This is one of my very favorite celebrations. I am a little bit of a sucker for celebrations and pomp and circumstance, but there's something about this ceremony that is particularly warm. And I think it's because of the relationships that I see played out throughout this ceremony. And I know that you've learned a lot of technical skills, and you've learned how to practice law during your time here at Baylor Law, but I hope you've learned some other things as well. The power of that community that has been so beautifully described. And that as you leave here, you will find community wherever you go, because it is those relationships that will cause you to aspire for better work, for doing a job well. It will teach you to care for one another, to empathize with others. Those relationships are vitally important as you proceed through not only your profession, but also through life. So these are learnings that I just, again, I aspire you to continue to find that community wherever you go. Of course, stay in touch with this community as well. Not only your classmates, but also Baylor Law and Baylor University. We value you. We thank you for all that you've done for Baylor University and all that you will do for the common good. So congratulations. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Brickhouse. Will the degree candidates please stand? Provost Brickhouse, each of the degree candidates standing before you today has completed the requirements for the degree of Juris Doctor as prescribed by the Faculty of Law and as prescribed by the Baylor University Board of Regents. Accordingly, it is my pleasure to present them to you for the conferral of the degree of Juris Doctor.
Each of you have completed the requirements for the degree of Juris Doctor as set forth in the Baylor University School of Law. Upon the certification of the Faculty of Law and on behalf of the Baylor University Board of Regents and President Linda A. Livingstone, it is my pleasure to confer upon you the degree of Juris Doctor. Congratulations.
We will now go forth with the award of the diplomas and the hooding of each of our graduates. At Baylor Law, we have a long tradition at our commencement exercises. Specifically, the tradition calls for the family, friend, and loved ones of each of the graduates to make as much noise as you possibly can as the name of your graduate is called and as they come across the stage. We're in a beautiful sanctuary. Don't let that deter you. If you feel any reticence, please know this. We will measure the depth of the love that you have for your graduate by the decibels that you can produce. Let us go forward.
Garrett Anderson, cum laude, Public Interest Fellow, Special Distinction in Criminal Practice. Kimberly Thais Andrade. Emily Jean Correa. Christian Lewis Carson Bannister. Madeline Grace Caskey. Samantha Landy Chaikin. Jessica L. Francis. Byron A. Haney, Special Distinction in Litigation. Sydney Ann Ironside, cum laude. William Vasco Jordan IV. We will recognize one graduate not in attendance today, McKellar Lee Carr. Matthew Austin Katona. Alyssa Morgan Killen. Kinsey Dawn Lakey. J.C. Lynn Lee, cum laude. Devontae Dwight Marshall. Megan Brooke Matson. Matthew James McKinnon, summa cum laude, highest ranking student in the graduating class. John David Merritt. Rohit Mittal, cum laude. Dana X. Wynn. Edward J. Odre. Stephen Avando. Preston Rockmore Polk. Audrey Michelle Ramirez, Leadership Fellow. Emma Lee Roddy, cum laude. David Anthony Cruz Rothweil. Ryan William Rowley. Jennifer Margot Shine. Alexandra Irene Sims. Pawandeep Singh. Tara Smith Hambacker, cum laude, special distinction in business planning. Danielle Brogan Snow, cum laude. Nicholas Todd Stevens. David W. Suttner, magna cum laude. Allison Jane Taft, cum laude. Alexandra Lee Thompson, Public Interest Fellow. Estefania Villarreal Montemayor, Public Interest Fellow. Christopher Cole Wagoner. Mallory Shea Walker. Rebecca Ann Wesley, Public Interest Fellow. James Donald Wilson. Solomon Singh Young Wong.
Let's rise and congratulate them all. Hey, family, friends, and loved ones, you did really good. You really love this group. So we come to the end, but this, of course, is the beginning. It is a commencement, and class, we send you out as Baylor lawyers. That's a highly distinctive moniker, and one that you can be so proud of. Remember the messages that have been shared with you today, and you can even take Professor Powell's last thought there about having fun to heart now. Go have some fun. Remember, as you go forward, of course, that as I have noted, you're here to serve. You remember at orientation I shared with you that you need to be thinking about, each of us need to be thinking about at every juncture in our life, why am I here and what am I doing? Why am I here and what am I doing? And I shared with you that you're here for a vertical reason, to glorify God. You're here for a horizontal reason, and that is to serve His kingdom. You have a highly distinctive, perhaps even unique set of gifts now. You have augmented what God gave you through your education, and especially your Baylor Law education. So go forward remembering that vertical and horizontal dimensions of your life. Thank you, family and friends, for being with us today. Thank you for the memories that you create for our graduates. And graduates, take time today to pull your family and friends aside, your spouses, your partners, parents, children, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and tell them thank you. Express that privately. You feel it, and we have to make sure that they know it from you. Please do that. Please do that. The 18th century Anglican cleric John Wesley said, remember to do all the good you can in all the ways you can, by all the means you can, at all the times you can, in all the places you can, to all the people you can, as long as you can. And with that, we'll close this lovely ceremony. I want to thank those who make it possible. Dean Teague, our registrar, Jerry Cunningham, Susie Daniel, Nick Texera, Meredith Meyer, Jill Stewart, and Kendall Smith. That's the team that has brought to you this wonderful, lovely time of celebration and memory. We will now recess. If you could please remain seated. The class and the stage party will recess to the narthex, but we'll be right back through that door over there. And we will come back so that we can take the class photo here at the front of this lovely sanctuary. And we so appreciate the fact that time after time again, that Reverend Snowden and the First Baptist Church of Waco have afforded to us such a grand and beautiful space in which to mark this passage into the professional lives of our graduates. And with that, we are adjourned. wonderful cello music by Miss Emily Monk.